Thank you, everyone. Shall I read the Helping Parents Heal mission statement, Mark?
Please.
Welcome, everybody. Just excuse me reading quite a long mission statement. Helping Parents Heal is a non-profit organisation dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counselling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and welcome to all of you who are watching this live and who will be watching the recording. You've heard of Shining Light Parents, perhaps. Well, you're going to hear from some of them this evening. And the definition is parents who, perhaps like yourself, were once very deeply grieving, primarily feeling, perhaps focused on pain, sadness, guilt, blame, anger, etc. And over time, though, they found ways to shift that a bit, to moment by moment choose to focus more on higher energies, emotions, and ways of being, partly because they realize that's where their kids are now, in realms characterized by those higher energies. And the more they can do that, the more they can perceive their child's living presence, their child right beside them. Also, parents choose to take the highway to honor their children, to find more meaning, to find the silver linings and share them with others and make their life wonderful. So I'm 70 years old. I've been working with many people for 50 years since I started working in hospitals, and then theology school, clinical psychology, holistic healthcare. I've been around tens and tens of thousands of people. Well, the Shining Light parents I know are some of the most amazing individuals with high levels of joy, peace, love, gratitude, and enlightenment. You know, there's a saying we have, I've been at Helping Parents Heal for almost 10 years now, that when a child passes, or really anything really difficult happens, it can make you better or bitter. And so you're going to learn this evening from these parents what worked for them, how they went through that dark night of the soul. And you're going to not only hear, but see in their body and their faces where they are now, and you can become that way as well. So it's truly a sacred opportunity, a deep honor for me to interview the parents, and I'm sure you'll get that sense as well when you hear them. So to learn more about that journey from deeply grieving to shining light, you can see my article number 82 at soulproof.com. Now, before we start the interviews, I'd like to share with you some important resources, because we know that different parents are in different state of grief recovery, different states of understanding the big picture of life. And so we have so many levels of resources. I'll go over those quickly. First of all, if you go to the website, helpingparentsheal.org, and then you see the top tab, YouTube videos, you will see it says affiliate leader and caring listener interviews. Then you'll see a photo of myself and Lynn, who's usually the moderator for these. And then you'll see all the YouTube videos done so far. I think we're up to 27 or something. And so you can watch all those for free, all these wonderful parents sharing their wisdom. After that, you'll see a link to affiliate leaders to find an affiliate group, a local group near you. And if there's not one, please consider starting one. Then you'll see a link for caring listeners. This is a group I started about 8 years ago. We have 35 wonderful parents who are willing to share time, take the time, talk at no charge with any parent. They're not trained psychotherapists, but they have gone through the toughest, been through it themselves. So they'll not only listen, but they'll share what worked for them and then walk with you. One of our sayings is, if you can't walk on your own anymore, we'll carry you until you can. So make sure you take advantage of these caring listeners. Then next, a link for a calendar of online events. There are one or more events almost every weekday evening. Amazing mediums and speakers and experts on consciousness and afterlife and grief handling and so on. Next, you will see links to 4 of my experiential videos that I presented to Helping Parents Heal groups. And so you get them free. The 4 most common ones that really make a difference in making that journey and deeply healing and transforming. Then the most commonly recorded articles or recommended articles. And then finally, links to radio shows. I interviewed people like Wayne Dyer and Bernie Siegel and Raymond Moody and Anita Moorjani and just top people. And some of them asked the question, what do you say to parents who have a child who passed? So lots of wisdom in those. So make sure you use those resources. And if there's anything else you need, reach out, let us know. We're here for you. You don't have to do this alone. With that, we would like to move on into the interviews. And we're starting with Chandra this evening. Thank you, Chandra. And tell us, please, about your dear Naman, his life and passing.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity of being here. I'm with friends and also affiliate leaders, and of course, Mark, who doesn't know you here. My son, Naman, is a wonderful kid. He's silent. He is, I'm using is very deliberately because I believe he is in the present. Extremely intelligent young man, far mature for his age, and was perhaps the best friend, bestie, soulmate that I can ask for. Continues to be that for me still, even when he's not physically there. So I can go on and on about him, but what strikes me, if I have to encapsulate who he is in just a few words, I would say extremely sensitive, extremely intelligent, quiet personality, kind of a yin to my yang, because I am more talkative and he is more absorbent. Was more of my therapist, perhaps, listening to me and taking it all in and calming me down. So in a nutshell, kind of, there is a phrase, child is the father of man, and he was my parent in that sense. Quickly grew on from the child role to a parent.
Beautiful, thank you. And how did Naman change worlds?
Naman changed world in September 23rd, 2018. It happened in such a way that also reflects his personality. So Naman actually left home in the middle of the night. Some of the people I sit here today know my story. When he left, we searched, we didn't know that he left. And then towards Early morning hours, when my husband got up to have a drink of water, he found that Naman wasn't there in his room. His lights were on, and he was missing. That started our journey to look for him, because we really thought that he had stepped out of home, but that was very unlikely for a kid who loved his home, loved his room, would never ever leave it. So we later on found out that he had passed that very same day. Uh, it was declared to be death by drowning, but what we really know is that he jumped. He jumped from a bridge, which is close to our house. We have a creek very close to where we live. So we know that it is death by suicide, but then there is no evidence in terms of, the traditional modes of suicide. But then also in his transition, as I speak, it used to be very triggering to even talk about how he passed. I could not even go through a line of how he left that day or his date of transition without breaking down severely. I'm able to reflect on it as the years have gone by, fifth year passed now, because I am grateful for closure. I'm grateful for the fact that I have learned about how he transitioned in a more logical way, in a more open way. Um, I'm grateful that I could um, re- I wouldn't use the word reconcile, but I have come to terms with why he passed and in the manner in which he did. So I sit back with a lot of gratitude when I even talk about his passing from this physical world. I don't know if that is making sense to most of you all,
Yeah.
but then we do sit with our memories and a lot of grief in the process of transition. I am less triggered by it now, and I'm able to reflect on it as an opportunity to look back on what I have got from that as well.
Sure.
In his
Well, thank you for that. And Elizabeth Boysan, who started Helping Parents Heal, co-founder, and I were talking, and we agree that between 25 and 33% of the children of Shining Light parents passed on by suicide or overdose. And it's quite common. And I wrote an article about it, article number 4 at soulproof.com. When a loved one changes worlds by suicide, we don't say commits. We also don't say your loved one died or killed himself. It's just the body went that way. And the bottom line is, it's just another ticket back home. And that's one of the main things I love about Helping Parents Heal. There's no judgment. That's how they return to home. And many of these children in their notes will express they just couldn't do it anymore. And my working motto is that these are very evolved children. They're sensitive, as you said about Naman, sometimes empathetic. They can feel the emotions of others. And as you know, life is no picnic on earth sometimes. And it's just, at some point, it's too much for these kids to continue. So I certainly understand that. Certainly the creator and angels and so on do as well. Well, tell us, please, how did you discover Helping Parents Heal, and how did they initially help you?
I discovered Helping Parents Heal very accidentally, because another parent who was tracking Naman's passing or the search process got in touch with me in terms of, did you find him? What happened? Because that's how viral his story went when we were looking for him. In the 10 days that we were looking for him, a lot of people got in touch. And once it was clear that he had passed on, this parent, who is now my affiliate leader, Anal, actually put me in touch with HPH, and I actually got to talk to Elizabeth. I found the most amazing family. I wouldn't even say second family, primary family in that group. And I'm very grateful for Elizabeth, because she made me feel that I was not alone. She made me feel that there was a purpose to what happened. There was definitely a plan in place. So I got a lot more from HPH in that sense, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of less isolation. And I think the primary, I wouldn't say services, because at that time it was 5 years down the line, HPH also did not have so many members and so many services very clearly laid out. But I could reach out to a medium particularly, who in that first session, I could see the guilt leaving me completely, the guilt of not being able to stop what happened around my son, a different kind of a world view in terms of, or a spiritual view in terms of why the transition happened, the sense of my child being safe wherever he is and he being on his own journey, so I could get all that. So the first service I would probably say was kinship, especially with Elizabeth, and then later on through a medium to kind of reach out and know that the child is okay. And then I just got incorporated into this huge family that is kind of still kind of feeding into my learning and molding me the way I am.
Excellent. Thank you. And tell us, please, how you're serving others now, and what do you consider your strengths in that?
I sit as an affiliate leader as a co-affiliate leader, because I share it with Anal Shah also in India. And we took this upon ourselves. We actually wrote to Elizabeth and we wanted to do this for India, because India, as Mark, you very well know, is very varied. There is no homogeneity, and we have different parents in different parts of India. There is nothing like this at all in India, because there is a lot of stigma around bereavement per se. People don't talk about it openly. The loss conversations are not there. So it was a unique opportunity to bring that to parents who are sitting in India, who are bereaved, parents as well. And the strengths that we bring are our own experience of loss. Though I and Anal have different experiences of loss, we really share that kinship. We bring empathy, we bring understanding, we consider ourselves as the bridge between HPH as a family and the groups of parents that we hold, because we are able to connect them to things that they would like to read, listen to, hear, services across HPH, and our own understanding about spirituality, which is a little different from the Western world. The Indian spirituality sits in its own space. So we are able to contextualize that and bring that to our group.
Beautiful. So this is getting into a little more personal, but tell us how you can best sense Naman's presence now.
Very early on, I remember having this conversation across even affiliate leaders. I went through a lot of stuff. There is a lot of reading on HPH and a way in which you can develop skills in which you can connect with your own children. A lot of people offer it across HPH. So I started reading a lot, and then that helped me also to open myself to receiving signs. I know it's not possible. It was not possible for me in the first year of grief. I can see it more clearly now as and when I go down the path. I am able to hear him in my head, with the caveat that I'm not cuckoo, because I'm a clinical psychologist and I keep checking my own positionality in that sense, saying, this is not schizophrenia, this is not an auditory hallucination. But jokes apart, I can hear him very clearly. I see these signs. I receive the signs. I receive them when I'm most needed, because I know my son will not crowd me. He will make sure that I get it when I'm ready or when I need it the most. So that's the way I actually sense him. I actually physically also sense him. As of 2 days ago, I could really, really feel that. So I cannot express it in any word. It's just that when you know it, and it's as clear as crystal.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know it's a little tough, but especially being a clinical psychologist, I would like to hear you say a little more for others about how you hear him in your head. What's that like for you, and how might they engender that?
I really love this question because it is a question I asked myself also in year one. Because if I took this, what I'm saying now, to anyone in a therapeutic space or in the mental health space, I would immediately be diagnosed. There'll be a DSM category to my record, and I would have done that if I weren't in this space myself. So I acknowledge that there is a lot about spirituality, and the way we sense our children is very, very different. Um, in a very different, we are in a different space. So I would actually ask uh, parents to be kinder on themselves and not self-diagnosing. Am I crazy? Am I doing this? Am I listening to this? There is a science beyond that we don't know about. It's being researched, but by the time it actually comes on to our textbooks and becomes a probably better evidenced science, I should not say that there is evidence to it, but um, it will take time. So it is clear from what I've read that our children do sense us. Our children can connect to us. We are capable of far beyond what we know medically as our senses. So we need to open those channels to be able to receive. We all have the transmitters built within us. So if we open ourselves, we will receive, and it's a skill. We need to fine tune ourselves to getting that messages, even if it's for our own kids, because that will help us also guide others to enable them to perceive this. It's something that cannot be explained. So when I say I do it, people ask, how do you do it? So for me, it is just a process naturally to kind of, hone my skills in terms of receiving science from my kids.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what are 3 things you've learned, Chandra, that you'd like to pass on to other parents?
3 major things was that we are not alone, because the sense of isolation during bereavement is massive. And it continues because people are not comfortable about talking about grief and loss, even in normal circumstances. Forget special circumstances like bereavement by suicide. So we are not alone. There are groups, especially groups like HPH, that afford us the opportunity to talk about our children, to be together as a family. And I know I've received a lot of love and support from people here. The second is that our children have really moved on to a different plane, one that we do not know much about, but we can connect and try and learn and read about it. We won't experience it till we go there ourselves, but it is our learning as well. So as when they are learning on the other side about connecting to us and developing themselves to be a different kind of personality, we are doing the same in terms of reaching them and developing our purpose in terms of what we are left behind here for. So I think we should not close ourselves to those kind of opportunities. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, well, that's great. So share with us, please, your belief or knowing about there being a meaning and a timing, even behind something as seemingly tragic and senseless as a child's passing.
I wouldn't have thought I had a purpose because year one was really, really bad. Um, it is not uncommon for bereaved parents to think about passing away ourselves after our children. So I think after year one, the reflection, the reading, and also the connection with my child helped me understand that I was definitely left behind for something. It took me time because it doesn't come on immediately like a light bulb Einstein moment saying that, yes, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. So it also allowed me to do several things before I started on this journey. I never thought that I would become a student at my age. I'm all of 53. I'm doing my PhD. I'm the youngest one on my block, the youngest student perhaps on my level, not in University of Melbourne, sorry. So it actually, when I look back, it's all because of my child. He kind of pushed me into this saying, if my passing by suicide had put you in this kind of position, then I think you should know more about it. And I am researching about the kind of ways in which children can be helped in terms of not looking at this kind of journey, you know. So I feel that indirectly he is responsible for me being where I am. That is my purpose.
Beautiful. Yeah, I am, well, email me please tomorrow about what you just said about how can we help prevent this, because I have a calling to assist in this area as well. Well, thank you, dear. That was wonderful. And Danny and Angela, you're up next, please, and tell us about your dear Ethan, his life and passing.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for this opportunity. And Chandra, I loved hearing about Naman again, and beautiful boy. So Ethan passed away when he was 18 in a motor vehicle accident. He fell asleep driving and had a head-on collision with a what we call a B double. I think they're called a D. What are they? Yep, B double. In Australia, it was a really big truck. So he died instantly, which you know, is absolutely devastating for our family. He was the oldest. He is the oldest of 3 children. We have 3 boys. So Ethan, and then Gemtree, and then Lacey. So Ethan was doing an apprenticeship, and he was doing an agriculture apprenticeship and traveling, working long hours, hard work, men's work at the age of 18, and he was often tired and had lots of other social pressures, trying to do a big man's job and still be an 18-year-old. He had a beautiful heart. He had a wonderful sense of humor, and quite often I still hear his laugh in my head. Yeah, it rocked our family, and I'll just see if Danny wants to add anything there about Ethan.
Yeah, so you know, Ethan was a boy who just loved life. He loved the natural environment. He loved the ocean. He loved the outback. He loved
Animals.
He loved that. He loved playing in the dirt. And you know, he was a bit of a practical joker. He loved to laugh, and he was really good, really skilled in the last few years of his life at bringing large numbers of people together. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And when did he pass?
He passed in 2019 on the 9th of December.
Okay. Well, you bring up some aspects, you know, loving nature and sense of humor and bringing people together. Some of those and other signs are that these kids are more evolved. You know, they're not beginner souls by any means. And that's why the name of the Q&A I write for the Helping Parents Heal newsletter is Evolved Souls Don't Need Long Earthly Lives. So thank you for reinforcing that. So
he's still doing that now, Mark. So he's synchronicities that happen in our life, direct evidence that he's still a big part of his family and the community around us as well. So his ability to bring his friends together and be there for his friends in their earthly journeys is still really quite evident to us. So yeah, it's a big part of his soul.
Great. Yeah, but so before we learn more about how you can sense him, tell us, please, how did you learn about Helping Parents Heal, and how did they help you initially?
Yeah, so I'm a scientist. So before Ethan passed, I could say that I was an atheist. I just believed once you died, you died. And when Ethan died, he didn't die. I couldn't understand how someone so alive could suddenly not live anymore. And that was such a strong feeling. I kept asking the question, where is he? So I would just reach out to people and ask them, my son died. Where is he? Where do you think he is? I'm trying to find him. So most of these people were like authors who'd written books that I'd look up on the internet, and then I would just private message them. So that's how my journey started, with finding out where Ethan was. And so one day we were driving our children to school and we just started getting signs, but I didn't know they were signs. So I started researching about them. And that brought me to a man called Simon Garfield Bowen, who has a wonderful podcast, which has changed names now, but it was called Past Life Podcast. And he interviewed a man called Jeff O'Driscoll. And I reached out to Jeff O'Driscoll and asked him, where is my son? And he asked to have a Zoom meeting with us. So Danny and I had a Zoom meeting one evening, and he mentioned Helping Parents Heal and a lady called Susan Giesman. And he told me to read Messages of Hope. So I read Messages of Hope and I was hooked. And Danny started reading Journey of Souls by Michael Newton and other things. And he went on his path and I went on my path with Helping Parents Heal. And so that is how Jeff O'Driscoll basically introduced us to Helping Parents Heal. But obviously Ethan was guiding us the whole way. And I just wanted to add on that, I think that, Danny, Elizabeth asked if we would be interested in starting an affiliate group in Australia, because we already had a New Zealand affiliate group, but the parents of that group were very keen to keep it as for those that had passed by suicide. And even though we are members of that group, Elizabeth thought it was a good idea to start a separate one. And so I didn't really have much energy for it, but Danny heard Ethan's voice one night, who told him to do it. And so this is why this group exists, thanks to Danny, who followed his heart. So it just went on from there. We quickly met up with Marie, who's also in this call, and that's how Helping Parents Heal started. And Danny didn't have Facebook before Helping Parents Heal, so he now has a Facebook account. So lots of new changes.
Nice. Well, I look forward to hearing Danny. You heard him. Tell me more about that, please.
Yeah, so I guess similar to Ange, I was a Catholic. I had an idea of, religion. I was raised that way, but my concept of spirituality was pretty abstract, and it wasn't a lived sort of experience.
That's okay, my friend. And while you're taking a moment, this is very helpful for dads, because first of all, dads are only about 10% of the parents in HPH. And it's tough for some of them to show their emotions or share or open up. So thank you for this, Danny.
Yeah, so just getting back there slowly. Yeah, so I just had this, for me, losing Ethan was just, yeah, it's just one of those peak experiences in life, and it just completely opened me up. Yeah, to me, it was. I felt like I was nailed on a cross, and
Okay, maybe we'll come back. We'll come back to this.
That's okay. No, I was just going to say, I just felt completely open to the universe, completely stripped down.
How long
And,
was this? How long was this after his passing?
This is the weeks and months after he passed.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that grieving process, in the depths of the grief, it was a very stripping down process for me. So I felt completely exposed to the universe, and you know, in that state, I was very open to what was flowing in. So I would often get thought communication coming into my mind that was happening on quite a regular basis, and I think the grieving mind, I think that's part of the grieving process, is that it, you know, people say it's a thinning of the veil. I think the mind, it's part of dealing with it. It's hard to explain it. Like time had a different meaning for us. We had a very strong sense of pulling into inwards. We shut the world out. We spent months just coming very much inwards, and deciding not to participate in the world, and that extended into, you know, significant periods. It's only now, maybe 4 years down the track, that I feel a lot more connected to the world and willing to engage in it. But initially, I felt a very strong desire to participate in that experience. I very much wanted to understand the grieving experience, and I was completely open to that, and wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful description of it. For those who want to learn more about what they're describing, you can see article number 17 at soulproof.com. It's called Spiritually Transformative Experiences. So what they're describing is they had an awakening. They went from kind of an abstract, not really caring about the big picture of life, not knowing, to when their son passed, boom, an awakening, an opening of the heart, an opening of the mind. And sometimes it takes a trigger like that to get a person to start asking the big questions and look at more. So tell us, from both of you, how do you sense his presence now?
Many ways, but voices. His voice appears in my head often. He gives us assurance and validation in kookaburras. He very much comes through. Kookaburras, I'm not sure if where else they are. I think they're an native Australian bird, and they have, if you haven't heard the laugh, please look it up on Google and listen to a kookaburra laugh. But at the funeral, a friend of ours sang a kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, a laugh, Ethan London laugh, Ethan London laugh. And that song is kookaburra laugh, kookaburra laugh. So they swapped the words over, and within weeks he started coming to us as a kookaburra. So that happens all the time. Not all the time, but very significant moments, of course. That's what synchronicities are. And it's a knowing that he's here. And even in my children have things where they come and say to us, oh my goodness, this is the biggest sign yet. Ethan came to me and said this. So that, you know, constantly blows us away as well.
Yeah, I sense his presence. So, you know, I'm a bit of a driver. I love driving. And if I'm driving to work, if I'm alone in the car, all of a sudden I'll just be overcome with his presence. And yeah, so that's you know, the feelings that come on when that happens are pretty overpowering. So, you know, that just straight away I burst into tears. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, by the way,
definitely thought communication for me. So I've learnt to trust that. I mean, initially you wonder if you're going crazy, but certainly now it's very much learning to trust the thoughts that come in. Sometimes I don't know if they're just Ethan. I get a sense that they're more generalized as well,
Collective.
yeah. So I don't sometimes get a strong sense that they're necessarily from Ethan, that the thoughts that come in, but I've learnt to trust that and learnt to try and understand what the universe is trying to convey to me in those messages.
Good, good. And by the way, I recommend that viewers watch these videos twice. One of the reasons is to not only hear what the parents have to say, but to watch their reactions, and especially watch your reactions when I said, how do you sense Ethan's presence? And you both just lit up and looked at each other and smiled. That's beautiful. So what are 3 things you've learned since Ethan changed worlds that you'd like to share with other parents?
I think for me, the pain is purposeful. The pain is frightening to start with, and it's transformative. There's dark nights of the soul where you feel that level of pain could it might become unmanageable, and think strange things could happen. Yeah, for me, the pain has been purposeful. It's part of the transformation of my understanding of where I am now and the bigger picture.
And I think for me, it's that death is not real, or it's not final. I'm looking forward to moving into that space where Ethan is, and there's no fear. Yeah. And I just think, for new parents, it really is breath by breath. It's a very slow, a slow process. And 4 years on, and we are, we're healing in a way, knowing that we'll never completely heal, but we're able to carry that pain a different way and step forward. We're stepping forward, which when it happened, we were stuck for many, many years.
And it's brought us into contact with some amazing people, and we're all helping each other, and that's been amazing. It's extended our family.
And I guess that's the thing, we're all connected. That's the other thing that I'd like people to understand, or that's what I learned.
Thank you very much. And Danny, your statement, the pain was purposeful. Wow, that's true. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody put that together. That is a powerful statement, but yeah, it is. And for those of you who can't see that that's true, I'll just say it is. The cosmos knows what it's doing. God is not asleep at the wheel. Well, share with us, please, what is your belief about there being a meaning and a timing behind Ethan's passing?
You can answer that one.
In the year of his passing, there were some signs that, obviously we didn't know how to read them then, but there were some things happen for Ethan that, when we look back on them, we thought, well, maybe that was, maybe it was in his destiny to pass when he did. I think, sometimes I think he, which, is hard. It's hard to say in using the right words that conveys a sense of sensitivity, but sometimes I think that his was almost a self-sacrifice for us. So Of course, he didn't know that when it happened. But I think I think, you know, like you said before, Mark, I think he is an evolved soul, and although he didn't want to, I don't think, you know, in this world he didn't want to pass when he did. The flow and effects of that for our family have been profound, and you know, for us with 3 boys, in a sense, he was the easiest one to love for us.
Yeah, he was amazing. He was beautiful, so easy to love.
So we've had to learn.
Yeah.
So sorry, Ange, we've had to learn how to love our other 2 boys in ways that
We didn't love them before in that way.
yeah, we might not have been able to love them in the way that we do now if Ethan was still here.
Yeah, so for parents who don't quite understand what he means about, in a way, Ethan sacrificed himself for the parents, we hear that from a number of parents, and they say that they can clearly see, and especially when they have a past life regression or pre-birth planning session, Michael Newton's work you mentioned, that one of the most common reports is that when souls come to a place like Earth, sometimes they don't wake up, you know, they stay in spiritual amnesia. And it takes something big to wake them up, shake them up, and help them remember who they are and why they're here. And the passing of a child can certainly do that. So thank you very much, you two. This has been so powerful, beautiful. God bless.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
My pleasure. Carrie, you are up next, please, dear, and tell us about your Sam, his life and passing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, Mark and everyone. My name's Kerry, mother of Sam. Sam passed as a 19-year-old. He was in a car accident. Always a loving child, very popular with adults and children, and he had a huge friendship base. And for someone so young, he was always very mature. He never judged people. He mixed with all different circles of kids, and that became very evident at his funeral. And we asked our daughter, who's 22 months older than Sam, you know, where will we have Sam's funeral? And she said, you need to make it somewhere really big. And we're like, well, how big's big? And we ended up having it, which is a funny sounding name, at the Celebrity Room at the Moonee Valley Racecourse. And we had 1,000 people there. So it was amazing. He was 19. Yeah, so larger than life. And just, we had a very close family, friendship. We were a great family, you know, the 4 of us. And I remember when Sam was 16, his sister Carla was doing her VCE studies, and we are a family of great travellers. We go overseas every year, and Sam had been to Europe, I think, at least 4 times in his short life, in America and Asia and so on. And I remember saying to Sam, well, you know, do you want to come overseas with me, because Carla will be studying? And he went to his sister first and said, will it be all right, just Mum and I? And Carla gave her tick of approval. So Sam and I went to America for about 3 weeks together and took him to Disneyland and Vegas to see the shows, and New York and San Francisco. And yeah, we just had so much fun. And but it was always like that. He was so much fun and still continues to be. And I'll get into that, but I very much feel his presence. I'm also a medium, which came about after losing Sam.
Quote, losing. Actually, he lost his earthly body, but everything else is around you. And yet another sign of an evolved soul. I mean, 1,000 people at the funeral. I'll be lucky if I get 6 or 7 show up. So, you know, that number of people shows you the ripples he created and just how much love. And yeah, we see that some of these more advanced souls, they don't need to do the 90-year thing. They come in, make a huge impact, and then, you know, they have, then they go on. So tell us, please, how did you discover HPH, and how do they help you?
It was really strange. I wish I'd known about Helping Parents Heal. Sam passed in 2012 on the 3rd of May, on the 2012, if I might just digress before I answer the question. He actually passed on the 3rd of May, as I said, 2012, and I lost my own father on the 3rd of May, 1978. So they both passed on exactly the same date, but 34 years apart. And I wish I'd known about Helping Parents Heal, because I was desperate at the time to know who to talk to and who, you know, I believed always in the afterlife. For me, that was an absolute given. And I'd always believed that there's two parts to us, a soul and a human body. And when the human body dies, that soul is what goes into the spirit world, that spark of light that resides in our torso, in our solar plex. So that's always been my belief. But I tried to find books that would answer all of these questions, and I couldn't. So in the end, I wrote my own book, and I was approached by Terry McDonald in the UK, and she is one of the members there, and they made my book, A Mother's Journey, A Story of Everlasting Love and Evidence of Life After Death. They made that the book club book for the month of February about 5 years ago. And I was chuffed, you know, I was amazed. So I was invited to be a speaker for the UK at one of these sort of Zoom chats. And that's how I first heard about Helping Parents Heal, and I wasn't even a member of it. So then I, you know, became a member here in Australia, and yeah, it's just been amazing. And I guess with my work as a medium, also, it's you know, I'm dealing with grief the whole time, but particularly when it comes to children, I'm actually one of those parents as well. So I'm helping them twofold. So. But that's how I found Helping Parents Heal.
Okay. So tell us about how you're serving others now and what motivated you to do that.
Very much to help people to understand that life is eternal, and that we are going through, all of us now, a phase of life here on earth right now, but our next phase or stage of life will be the afterlife. And I just try and gently as I can, through my work as a medium, just have those discussions with my clients who I'm sitting with. And I also speak at various, you know, mind, body and spirit festivals and so on in the seminars, just to assure people that their children are not gone, they are in another space, and that communication with them is very, very possible. As Chandra was talking about, you can do it either via a medium or very much on a personal level. And I explained to them how they can just be mindful of the change in energy around them. And when they feel a change in energy, you know, whether it be a coldness or a heat or you know, a vibration or something around them, don't just dismiss it or ignore it, because it's the communication between the spirit world and here is so subtle that it's easily missed. So I just try and teach them that to talk to their children either out loud or in their own voice telepathically, or see a medium. We saw a medium for the first time 6 weeks after Sam passed. I didn't know what mediums did 11 years ago. I had no idea. And her opening words to me were, "You are a mother grieving the loss of a son aged between 18 and 20, and Sam was 19. And I left that reading. I had my husband with me, thankfully. And I left that reading a different person. And then I went in search myself of finding a development circle so I could, you know, learn how to I could feel Sam's presence, but I needed to learn more. And then I started going to Arthur Findlay College in England, where I've gone now. I'm about to go for my 15th and 16th weeks there. I go every year for 2 weeks at a time to continue studying my mediumship, to get better and better at it, so I can continue with my work in helping others.
Beautiful. So obviously you have skills to make the connection, but what can you pass on to other parents, how they might sense their child's living presence?
It's I'm a firm believer. I've had that many through signs and signals and synchronicities. I think are very important, and those signs they can really lift your own heart, your own soul when you receive them, but at the right time. So Sam has always been prolific with feathers. That may sound whimsical, but it's where you find the feathers and how they affect you. And it's not every feather that I find. It's when it's on a special occasion, a birthday, an anniversary. We will find, a feather, in the strangest places on my husband's desk, or I've had them when I go to England all the time for my study. I'll arrive. It happened to me this year. I arrived at Paddington Station and I could see this thing floating down above the enclosed station, and I knew it was a feather, and it was above the train. And as it's getting closer to the platform, I'm making a beeline for it. And when I pick it up, it's two feathers. When I went like that, it's two feathers entwined. So for me, that's one for you, Mum, one for me. Amazing stuff like that. And I also, Sam, prior to his passing, said to me, just out of nowhere, he said, "Mum, have you ever seen the movie Ghost?" And I said, "Well, I have actually." And he said, "Is it any good?" And I said, "I loved it." And he said, "Let's watch it." And so I have no idea where my husband or daughter were, but it was just Sam and I at home. We put Ghost on, and he was blown away by the concept of life after death. And, and I remember there was a part there about the cat trying to get the attention, the spirit trying to, no, sorry, that's not right either. There was an intruder in the building. He was trying to get the cat's attention, and the cat could sense the spirit. Anyway, I told my friend of mine who's a medium, and I hope I'm not digressing much here, said to me one day, "Kerry, I saw Sam today, and he's sprawled out on your couch wearing boxer shorts and a t-shirt, which was his favorite form of dress when he was at home. And he's trying to get the cat's attention at the end of the couch." And we had a cat that was living at the time that permanently sat on that couch. And I said, "Wow." And that night, the same cat got up and ran around madly for about 10 seconds and then went, back to bed. And so I got up and looked at the digital clock, and it was 3:05, and Sam died on the 3rd of May, 3:05. So that was like, he's amazing at his communication.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the more you're open to it, the more you will have these sorts of things happen. So I cannot stress that enough. Just be open to it, and don't expect it, and don't go looking for it, but be open to it.
Well put. Well, what are 3 key insights you've learned, Kerry, since his passing, and that you'd like to share with others?
Well, it comes back to, once again, not doubting the senses that you're feeling as a parent, that they can only do so much to try and get your attention. So we have to kind of help them as well. And I've learned very much to be open to it. From the very first time that Sam passed, I felt his physical presence or energy around me the day that he actually passed. And his mates would keep, this is before I had discovered my mediumistic abilities, they were clearly, obviously there, but it was the trigger for pursuing them was Sam. And whenever Sam's mates were coming over, they would always ring or text us and say, "Can we come over tonight?" And we're like, "Absolutely." And I'd put the lights on in the large kitchen dining area that we had at the time. And there was 7 lights in that space. And when only this would happen when his mates were coming, I put the light on, and 1, 2, or 3 light bulbs would all blow on those times. And we went through about 30 or 40 light globes in a 5-month period before we sold the house. And my husband is like, "Oh God, we need an electrician." And I'm like, "No, we don't." I just knew that this was a form of communication, and that's what I say to anybody: just don't dismiss those things. That is your child working through pure energy, doing their damnedest to let you know, I live on, I am here. So So, and I just think it's just so important to also celebrate their lives. I'm so saddened when I hear of people that don't talk about their kids anymore. It's a subject that's taboo. I find that so horrible, because imagine them in the spirit world hearing their parents say, "No, they're gone, we're not," and they'd be like, "Mum, Dad, what is wrong with you? You know, I'm here." And so I find that, I try and instill in that in people, and celebrate their birthdays. We've got Sam's 31st birthday coming up next month, and we go to a local pub, and these events are getting bigger every year. They're not getting smaller. Now his mates are there with babies and dogs, and it's just, and we don't even invite our own contemporaries. We keep it just with the kids, because if our immediate Sergio's brother and sister go, and their kids and so on, but we just have it with his mates, so that it's our day to spend with them. Because if we had our friends there, that we'd be talking to them, and then they wouldn't want to, so and we have changed their lives as well, because we've given them almost permission, I guess, in some ways, to actually think outside the box that Sam does live on, and for a lot of them that was quite confronting, but then they'll often ring me and say, "Kerry, just, got in the car after leaving or whatever, there's a feather on the seat," or whatever. So I've opened their own, their own minds as to what's possible.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful segue to the last question, which is, what's your belief about there being a meaning and a timing behind Sam's passing?
Yeah, I believe, rightly or wrongly, that we have an in date and an out date, being birth and death, and then we have a lifespan, and that lifespan can be a few breaths in a child that loses their life, or 100+ years. But I do believe that timeline cannot change. It is set. And the choices that you make along that timeline are completely your own, and even if it is a suicide, that your life has led you to make the choice to step into the next world under your own terms. And I can tell you, I've never ever had done a reading for a child or an adult who has suicided that regrets their actions, because they made that choice, and for them, life is easier on the other side. So, and I think it's important that that's shared as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. You obviously have a lot to share. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anne-Marie, you are up next. Please tell us about your dear Harry, his life and passing.
Thank you. Thanks everybody who's spoken so far. It's been wonderful. Much like Kerry and similar to Angela and Danny, my boy Harry was 19 and he had a fatal motorbike accident. It was quite close to our house, and he had loved motorbikes probably his whole life, something he inherited from his dad. He was quite an obsessive personality, just in terms of what Harry was like. Very different from someone like Sam, who was incredibly popular and outgoing. Harry was, as a teenager, was the polar opposite, probably. He was painfully shy. He had been quite a confident and outgoing child. But for some reason, once he hit about 14, he became incredibly insular and very sort of unwilling to put himself out there socially. So unlike a lot of teenagers, Harry was very much a homebody. He was obsessive about many things in his life, And by the time he was an older teenager, around 16, when he got his driver's license, he was obsessive about cars and motorbikes. So when he transitioned, which was obviously very sudden, he left me with 6 cars and multiple parts and tires, 16 tires or wheels. He was very practical. He was an apprentice carpenter, so he hated school. He actually had quite sort of authentic physical illnesses through school, high school, I mean. He really became disengaged between 14 and 17, worried me so much in terms of fearing for his future, which I never needed to do because he had a rock solid life plan, you might say. He did, through the 2 of us working together, he was very lucky to get an apprenticeship within a week of finishing his schooling and was on his pathway to being a very successful young man, learning about how to interact in a workplace, learning leadership skills. His employer at his funeral said that he was the best worker they'd ever had. He was part of a tight-knit team, about 5 young men or men of various ages. And that was the most wonderful experience I could have asked for, that he had these mentors. Even though he was very quiet, Harry is incredibly sensitive. Sorry.
No need to apologize.
Yeah, and I guess it sounds really weird to say this, but this is the group to say it, that through Harry's transition, we've become closer than ever. So there's obviously a silver lining, even though I hate that saying, especially in relation to child death. But he's shown me since 3 days afterwards, when I first saw my first medium, he's shown me that he is very much still present. And a bit like others have said, I feel like, just to sort of move into the second question as well around helping parents heal, I feel like Harry led me to that experience of basically being contacted by Angela after I wrote a story for a national media platform here. So she contacted me on Facebook Messenger, and she said that Ethan had passed in a similar way. And within literally a few lines, she said something along the lines of, are you open to a spiritual interpretation of this? And I was like, ears. I was like I had the radar out because I had been very spiritual my whole life, but I had considered my childbearing years, which were in my 30s, to be very much in that earth mother phase. I had my feet in the earth. I was raising my beloved boys. Everything in my life had moved to be about them. So when it came time to move, I guess, into a different life focus, Harry led me to do that. And he and Ethan brought me, Angela and Danny, and within 2 months, I was in the very first meeting and doing this, crying all the time because it was so recent. I think Harry had only been gone about eight or 10 weeks when I attended the first meeting. So it's still very emotional.
Sure. And what year did he
It was
pass?
It was October 2020. And it's really weird because I can live a lot of my life, most of my life, with all the feelings pushed down, but in an authentic way, because I have so much positivity in my life about the connection with Harry. I really do focus on that. It's like it's something that keeps me going. Apart from my second son, it is my whole reason for living.
Well, take a moment to catch your breath there, dear. And for others who are viewing, it is emotional. And you see, Anne-Marie is a shining light parent. I mean, she's heading up the team that's going to write a book called Shining Light Parents Speak. And yet, they definitely have their moments, especially around anniversaries and holidays. So if you're emotional, that's just fine. And you never have to apologize for it. Everyone in Helping Parents Heal understands it, and they'll cry with you. I mean, gosh, if this doesn't touch your heart, nothing will. You're a Dr. Spock. You're a Vulcan. So share with us.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, you're welcome. So how have you learned that you can best sense Harry since he changed worlds?
So I did see a medium, as I said, within 3 days. I had a really mixed up understanding, or at least it was ignorance really, because I was just worried that he would get out of reach. You know how some people believe that their soul stays around for 7 days or something. So I had a great sense of urgency. And so I did find a local medium in the city where I live in Adelaide. And I took my second son along, and I pretty much cried the entire time. She knew quite a bit already, which I do regret, because I'm sure everybody realizes that our brains are quite adept at finding opportunities to question or make us feel unsure about our spiritual connections. And much like others have said, we do need to learn to trust our intuition and to trust our ability to hear them, not necessarily with our ears. But having said that, after the medium, which she said one profound thing, most of it was correct, but one profound thing I mentioned about Harry's love of cars. Most of the cars were at his dad's house, but some of the parts and whatnot were at my house, and I didn't realize the extent of the impact on my property, shall we say. But one of the things the medium said was, Harry said he's sorry for the oil stains on your pavers. And it wasn't until I had cleared away this massive pile of parts that I saw this huge oil stain, which is permanently embedded in my brick pavers, which I love now. Like every time I see it, I think of Harry. But that is such a specific thing to see or hear. But in terms of communication from Harry, it's only happened 4 times now and twice most recently. But in that first 3 weeks, I heard when I was asleep Harry's actual voice shouting, "Mom!" Like it was shouting across a chasm. And it was his grown-up voice, his 19-year-old, very deep voice. And I woke up instantly alert because I'd heard him. But yeah, so Harry is a prolific communicator at times. I'm noticing in this 3rd year that he has slowed down, and I've been really interested in that, and I've been talking to others and just doing a bit of upskilling and learning myself around how I can sort of keep things going. But I do document all my dreams. He comes to me mostly through either dreams or visitations. Visitations being hyper real, incredibly memorable, and usually filled with emotional connection. So they're unmistakable for me in terms of very different to dreams. The dreams I have, I feel like Harry is entering them from a shared dimension or a dimension where he can reach me in my dream state. And I feel like they're probably more like nudges where he inserts himself into a narrative that my brain is creating. So dreams, visitations, or encounters, however you describe that, I do document everything. Several have been incredibly profound. Most are a meeting of souls with high emotion. And then I do get more instructional type dreams. I had a whole series of dreams in the first 6 months where I feel like Harry, who was a very practical person, was showing me the nuts and bolts. It was almost like this happens and then this happens and then this. And it was like an instructional technical video in a way. And the other thing I get is, or I've had, I mean, I do get signs, but I even though I've had maybe 10 really meaningful signs, which I do document, I don't think of Harry as someone who does signs very much. I feel like the signs that he sends are very specific to him. I have had one feather, and I do think that was him as opposed to a bird dropping it. Or, he worked through the bird. But just a couple of other things I wouldn't mind mentioning is I've had a few experiences with a pendulum where I feel like there was definitely something happening. It was not my hand. I'm not incredibly educated in how to use a pendulum, so it was a bit of trial and error, and it's something I will come back to. But another thing that's happened to me twice is Harry speaking through a candle flame, and I actually did get it on video. And I was very emotional at the time, and I do talk out loud a lot to Harry. Particularly I did in the first 2 years, possibly more than I do now, although I do it a lot anyway. And I noticed when I said something that the candle responded, and there was no wind in the room. And there was another candle right next to it that was steady, and this one just started going crazy, flickering. So I experimented, and I captured the second half of it on video. I can't make that happen at will, and I feel like maybe that was a huge amount of effort, and he can't do that very often. But yeah, so in terms of connection, it's those main things. But just quickly, I'd like to add that I had a really bad night last night in terms of high emotion, and possibly that's why I've got the tail end of it today. Although obviously it's an emotional topic. So last night I watched something on Netflix and I watched the end of it. It was a long series and it was about the passing of a young woman, and it really triggered me. Like I normally I'm on an even keel quite often, but this one I just could not stop crying and gave myself a splitting headache and, just couldn't stop for a long time, maybe 30 minutes. And so I went to bed absolutely wrecked. And as usual, this is around midnight. As usual, when I go to bed, I kiss this big life-size picture of Harry I've got in my bedroom. And I said something I've learned from a medium called Cheryl Page, who I adore. She does a lot of sort of education for people who've lost loved ones. She says, "Show me your presence in wondrous ways." And I say that every night to Harry's picture. And he is often responsive to my requests for help. And I can't remember where, but I know it's often said that if we ask for help, we will get it. I haven't found that always to be the case, but last night Harry did deliver, as he often does on request, a really powerful dream. And he was his 19-year-old self, which is unusual. Harry usually comes to me much younger, anywhere between 8 and 12. But he was his 19-year-old self. It was a vivid, profoundly beautiful dream. It was a dream because unfortunately I had another dream straight after it. And so it's like a distant memory. And it was really hard for me to write it down this morning because another one came in and took over my memories.
Okay.
But it was wonderful.
Well, it sounds like, and for other parents, there's good evidence, clinical evidence, that dreams may not necessarily be just dreams. They can indeed be visits, what we call evidential dream ADCs. So to learn more about that, you can see article number 28 at soulproof.com. Well, Anne-Marie, tell us what are, and we need to go briefly now, what are three things you've learned that you'd like to pass on to others?
Yeah, thank you. I second everything everyone said. For me, I would say a key message from me is that our children do live on. I have zero doubts anymore. I don't describe it as a belief system. I think it is a knowing. I've had far too much evidence since Harry's transition 3.5 years ago to doubt that. The other thing I was going to say, which is sort of in contrast to me crying a lot today, but the grief doesn't always have to be heavy and joyless. I have a lot of my life in a state of acceptance and calm, and knowing that Harry is somewhere, that he does live on. I often do feel intensely curious about what he's doing, and I have had some good communication around that, either through a medium or myself. So just that sense that we can transform ourselves, we can heal, not in a sense that we are moving on, but moving forward. That sense of moving forward is definitely possible. I do have a lot of interaction with grieving parents, obviously through Helping Parents Heal, but I have a TikTok channel where I do focus on after-death communication from the perspective of a mother whose son has transitioned. And I have to say the TikTok community for grief is absolutely massive. And I am shocked at how stuck and in pain so many parents are. So my third message would be that we need to find our tribe because they can save us.
Okay, great. And finally, share with us, please, your beliefs about there being a meaning and a timing behind Harry's passing.
This is a tough one. And it was actually Angela who said to me the first time we met, in the article that she read in the story of Harry's passing of worlds, I talked about there being a warning a year before where the same thing had happened. He'd been riding his motorbike. He was in quite an isolated place, and he went into long grass and he hit a rock, a boulder, and he flew over the handlebars and he was unhurt, but it gave him a massive shock. And we talked about that and the learning experiences from it. And I'd mentioned this in their story, and Ange said to me, have you ever wondered whether that was maybe an exit point? And the concept of an exit point was something I'd heard, but I had never thought about it in that context. And that was probably the beginning of me allowing myself to think very gently and slowly about this as a soul plan experience. The only other thing I would add to that is I have since just remembered other potential exit points, and I do believe Harry probably had another one or two before, well, definitely one, but maybe another two before his actual exit point at 19. He'd only just turned 19, 3 weeks. And I also think it's significant if we think of our child's presence with us as part of a soul plan. I never wanted to have children. I was absolutely convinced and adamant that I never would. And when I was in my early 30s, I had a dream that was incredibly emotional and profound of breastfeeding a baby in bed. And I turned on the head of a pin. I was having that child. And so then my life shifted into I must have a child. And I aligned everything in my career so that I could do that. So I do believe now in hindsight that that was Harry saying, you got to get a move on, woman. You're going to run out of time if you don't do this. So, and a few other experiences of, I've forgotten the word, when you know something's going to happen.
Yeah, precognition.
Precognition.
Yeah.
Precognition.
Okay,
so I have had a few of those,
right.
2 of which involve my babies. So I do think there probably is a meaning. It probably is part of our soul plan. And I am incredibly grateful to Harry for his role in showing that to me, but also staying present in my life. It's sort of, in a really weird way, it sort of makes it all worthwhile. That's very hard to say that, though.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for all of that. And Marie, you are up next, please, dear, and tell us about Sienna. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yeah, that's right, Sienna.
Her, please.
Okay. So Sienna was a very artistic and creative child. She, I always used to call her an old soul because she had this sort of understanding about life that even challenged my own views at the time. One thing that sort of just stands out is one day she was drawing a little picture of heaven, and she went to a Catholic school. So I'm expecting it to be in this Catholic way, but she had stepped it out and she had put it into sections about choosing where you wanted to go, choosing who your parents were, choosing what you look like. And then at the end of it, she had this book and it said it was the book of life. And I said to her, I actually videoed this in hindsight, thank goodness. And I said, well, so what's in the book of life? And she goes, oh, Mum, you don't get to read that. You only get to read that at the end. And that's where your destiny is.
Oh my gosh. And
So for me,
sorry, how old was she then?
probably about 7.
Wow. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
another goal for you.
7 or 8, yeah. So she always had some interesting concepts. Another concept that she came home with about about hell. She said, you know, Mum, at school they're talking about hell and heaven, like in pitchforks, and she goes, they've got it wrong. And I said, oh, have they? And she said, yeah. She goes, heaven's not a place that you go. Heaven is a state. Hell's not a place that you go. Hell is a state of mind. And I really have resonated with that since she has passed, and I've come to understand what she meant by that. She was very early, she was an early bird. She was very interested in learning at school. She was very diligent. She was very caring. She looked after she was the eldest, so she looked after her sister and all of her cousins underneath her. She was very forgiving. She understood adults and children's flaws. So yeah, she was just a pleasure to be around, and she had a lot to teach. She passed when she was 11. She was at school, and she had what is called an arterial venous malformation in her brain, and it suddenly dissected. So it was a very sudden, tragic passing. But she had 2 weeks before, we were in lockdown over COVID. So this was on May the 14th, 2020. And during that period of time that I got to spend with her solidly for 8 weeks, which was, you know, my final gift. And she had said to me 2 weeks prior, Mum, what do you think happens when you die? Even though, you know, at 7 or 8, she had, you know, had these ideas. She's coming into her earthly form as a teenager, which I think, you know, the layers come off and she's starting to be influenced. And, you know, I said, you know, there's a lot of things, and I talked to her about it, you know, about life reviews and things like, you know, the light and energy. And she just said to me, Mum, I want to be cremated and I want it to be really fast. And I said, okay, well, that's bad luck because you don't get to choose, you know, you'll be an old person when that happens. But yeah, sadly, it was 2 weeks later that she passed. So yeah, that was my Sienna. Is
Wow.
my Sienna, I should say.
Yeah, it's not difficult to realize she's an evolved one. Pictures of heaven involving choices you make. That's a good one. So tell us, how did you discover Helping Parents Heal, and how did they help you at first?
Sure. So I believe that it was when I was reading Messages of Hope by Suzanne Giesemann. I think there's a reference in there, or either that, and I looked at her on Facebook and went down the rabbit hole and found Helping Parents Heal. And then I found that there was an affiliate group in Australia, and there was Angela and Danny who were hosting it. And I thought to myself, I need to speak to Ange and Danny. So I reached out to Danny, and of course, not now, to my surprise, as we are great friends and share such a close bond with our family. They live 10 minutes down the road from where I live. So yeah.
I can get the sense of the love and closeness you all have. Wonderful. And so people in your area, I definitely recommend your group. Well, what have you learned about how to best sense Sienna's presence now?
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways, Sienna was very connected to nature, and I felt very early on a sense of that connectedness to the energy, to nature, and I would often, you know, feel and hear messages from her through that. But it's morphed into, you know, dreams or like hearing in my mind just some very like one-liner sentences that, you know, come to be evidential. Things like, you know, once she said to me, I'm going to send you a rainbow. And I was like, that's funny because there's no rain in the sky. So I don't know how you're going to do that. by the time I got home, I was sat down in my kitchen maybe 3 minutes later, and my husband goes, "There's a rainbow outside, but it's not raining." And I was like, "Thank you." Yeah.
Nice. What else could you say about that, please?
Yeah. So for the how I connect.
How you censor, yes, especially censor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think in the early times, it's very hard because your energy is so dense and there's so many layered emotions about their passing and how or why. And as you've touched on, the guilt, or, you know, could I have, you know, stopped this from happening? All those things create it like a really hard way sometimes to connect. But over time, as it unfolds, finding the quiet moments and being able to be still in life, I think really helps. And having a trust that, and it doesn't come easily because I often question and I need a bit of evidence, but it takes a while to really trust in your soul that that is what is happening. And when you can find that trust and that stillness, I think they can communicate to you in whatever means that they need to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew there was a reason I asked for you to say more. Well put. So what are 3 things you've learned, Marie, that you'd like to share with other parents?
Yeah, so I have learned, I've written these down because, you know, like Sienna, I wanted to be succinct. She's got me, she's a taskmaster for me, which I love. That there is more to this reality than we can understand right now. And even though it feels like we're in the center of this pain and turmoil, there is a bigger picture that is yet to unfold for all of us, if we allow it. I believe that there's a higher perspective to why our children pass, and we don't understand that straight away. But if we let it unravel over time, in the right timing, I believe we are sent what we need to hear: videos, books, people that will cross our paths, that will help us to heal and help us to open ourselves on our own journeys. And that thirdly, whilst this is so painful and hard, there is some choice in all of it to find some elements of wisdom and deeper meaning. And I feel like I like to preface that with that there's no timeline to that. If you choose to stay in the pain and the sorrow, you stay in it for as long as you like, because that is your path. But then when you find it inside of yourself and you feel ready to find that meaning, I feel like it is there to be found.
Great point. And helping parents heal, leaders and teachers and so on feel the same way. We don't have any judgment. You know, some people go a long time stuck in the heavy emotions. If that's the case, we'll be there for you with that. But if you want to awaken and fly and find the silver linings and share them, yeah, we'll help you with that as well. So tell us, please, about your belief in there being a timing and a meaning behind the way Sienna changed worlds.
So Sienna changed worlds at a very heavy time, I think, in humanity. We were locked down in Australia for 6 or 8 weeks prior to her passing. So it was in May 2020. And just before she passed away, she wrote this poem. And if you don't mind, it's very short. I'll read it to give context. It's called Small Things. And she wrote, "Sometimes you can't see them. Sometimes you treasure them, but they are always there whether you see them or you don't. Like butterflies and bees and everything in between. A nicely made bed and a kiss on your head." So for me, I feel like her passing was this reminder at a time when everybody around her was scared and fearful about what the future was going to hold. And as much as I wish she could have subbed out for somebody else to bring that message to people, within our community, that poem was shared to so many people, and they had it etched in the playground at her school to remind people that, you know, in the turmoil and the hardness of things, it's just those small things. It's, you know, going in to kiss your kid on the head at night. It's the butterflies, it's the bees, it's just nature, it's the small things. But also, sometimes it's the things that you can't see.
Mm, mm.
And that's, you know, them and their energy.
Oh boy. Yeah, has has her poem been shared in the HPH newsletter?
Yeah, it has. I put it in this book too, because
Okay.
her one dream was that she always wanted to be an author. So I was like, okay, you've got a job for me.
Well, let me ask, do you have a sense of, you know, even though there's sadness and all that, and wish she had lived longer, do you have a sense of gratitude and even awe that you were chosen, you were blessed to be the mom of this highly evolved one for a short period of time?
I know that at any given time, if somebody said to me that you had 2 minutes with her or 3 years, or I would have chosen it every single time.
Yeah.
No matter what sort of pain that would have brought me, because she was a joy, and she continues to be selfless in her ability to hold myself and the people around her, her friends and family, and she, you know, shows up for them too. So to me, it's one of the biggest things I'm grateful for and humbled by in my life.
Beautiful. Yeah, I get a real sense of that. Well, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Merle. Whoa.
I don't know if she's back because her power went out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think she's
I'm
been
back.
coming and
Oh, you're
going.
back? Okay. Yeah, no worries.
You're on, Merle. Tell us about your beloved Chris, please.
So Chris was a huge personality. His nickname was Leafy. He was a huge man. He was 34 years old when he transitioned, but he was loud. He was caring. He had the best smile. He had empathy for people like I've never seen before, and even as a teenager. He had the most piercing, incredible blue eyes, and he loved a party. One of my biggest things around Chris was he gave everybody the biggest and the best hugs that anybody could ever get.
Hmm.
He made some really poor choices when he was a teenager and was in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing. He had to take responsibility for that, and that taught our whole family a lot. We learnt to live one day at a time. He went to prison for 6 years. So that was a really tough time. He was 19 when he had a motor vehicle accident, and he was 21 when he went to prison. So he came out of prison in 2012. And during that time, we grew very much as a family, even though he was away, together, because we took on this mantra of let's just go one day at a time. He had 2 little boys. He was an amazing father. He loved children and loved his children. A partner of 6 years, and his little boys were 18 months and 9 months old when he transitioned. He transitioned on a holiday in Bali. He'd taken them over to Bali, and the night that they arrived, he had a cerebral aneurysm that burst. We didn't know that, but that was the 27th of December, 2018. We got the message at midnight to say that he'd passed away, and he from his partner, who was incredibly distressed, as you can understand. We flew to Bali the next morning, and our focus was, of course, to bring him home and bring his little family home. Yeah, but he was amazing. He was like Carrie. He was a carpenter, you know, loved to make stuff. He was just the most beautiful, beautiful man.
Sounds like it. So how did you discover Helping Parents Heal, and how were they able to help you at the beginning?
Well, the day that we got home, it was really stressful, and I just prayed and prayed and prayed for guidance. And I returned to my Swedenborgian spiritual upbringing. That's how I was brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And my faith taught me that heaven was right here, and that heaven was a state of mind. So Sienna was absolutely on the mark. And that it was here, right here with us. So in those days after Chris transitioned, I went back to a YouTube channel. It was called Off the Left Eye. So it's a Swedenborgian channel on YouTube. And I reconnected with my faith. And in one of their podcasts, they mentioned Helping Parents Heal, but they mentioned the movie Life After Life, Mum, Can You Hear Me? And so from that, of course, I drove straight into Facebook page. And from there, I watched loads of movies, many podcasts, and it just reconfirmed what I had always been taught, that heaven was right here and they're just in the room next door.
Yeah, Swedenborg, a very wise teacher. His work has helped me over the years. So how did you know it was time for you to help others, and how are you doing that, Merle?
When I first went on to Helping Parents Heal, I mean, I was sad, very sad, and Chris's passing was tragic, and we were dealing with little boys and a very distressed partner, soulmate for Chris. But I felt that everything I was reading at that time was very sad, and I thought, I just want to be able to help these people. They're so sad, and we don't need to be so sad or so stuck in this sadness. And so I reached out to Lynn and said, I'd really like to be a caring listener, primarily because at that point there were no caring listeners in Australia. And so for us to ring the States, we've got to look at the time zones and, and I just thought, hey, let's just have a caring listener in Australia. And I became a caring listener from that point. And then I learned about our Australian affiliate group. And it was so exciting to find them all because we could talk in similar time zones, not the same. But so I joined, and then as the group, it's hard work running something like this, and they needed extra support. So I put my hand up to run, a meeting every now and again as an affiliate leader.
Good job. So what have you learned how you can best sense Chris's living presence?
Oh, so many ways. As I said before, Chris was loud. Now, one of our loud birds here is a black cockatoo. It screeches, and he had a passion for black cockatoos. He just loved them. They would come to their tree in their backyard, make a hell of a mess, but he loved them. So when I see a black cockatoo and I hear that black cockatoo fly over, or see it fly over, and I hear it screech, I know that's Chris telling me, hey, Mum, hi, I'm here. I'm just on my way past. I don't necessarily always sense his presence, but I know he's here. I don't have any doubt about that. But I look for his signs. I look for number plates. I look for the birds. I look for the feathers. I look for the coins. And I get subliminal messages. I hear him talking to me, and it'll just be something like, Mum, you need to check the door, or look over there. And one day after leaving work, he said, look up, Mum, and there was a big heart in a cloud. So I know those voices I now realise are him communicating with me. I do get a fuzzy sensation in my head, and I've had it on and off throughout this morning. And I know he's here. He's just like, yeah, I'm here, Mum. I'm here, just letting you know I'm here. So, even for preparing for this, this brought up a lot of emotion for me. And when I'd finished, I found a USB, and I thought, what's this? Put it in my computer, and on there was a file called Precious Memories, and it was videos that I had moved from a
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, but you've frozen up.
Oh, sorry. Is that okay?
Precious Memories is the last thing I heard.
Okay, and that Precious Memory folder was full of videos of my children when they were little, from a Super 8 camera to an MP3-4. And it just made me smile. And I just thought, yeah, Chris, you're here. You're bringing me back into this space of joy and happiness, which is where you want me to be.
Nice. And thank you for bringing up the point about messages from, quote, spirit, because oftentimes they are short and sweet. They're to the point, but they're clear. So what are 3 things you've learned, Merle? And by the way, if you freeze, you can just turn off your video and that'll improve your bandwidth. We can still hear you at least. What are 3 things you've learned since his passing that you'd like to share with others?
I guess that I would love everybody to be able to believe that there is an afterlife, that there is a heaven, that they have just moved to the next phase. It's right there, it's next door. And although I was so devastated and terribly sad, I was actually happy. I knew that he was safe. I knew he was close by, and that's what I would love everybody to feel. Secondly, I know that it's hard to be happy. It's hard to be happy in the beginning. There's no doubt about that. But I want people to know that they can feel happy. They're allowed to feel joy. They're allowed to laugh. And their kids are right there when they do that. And that's exactly what these kids want us to be. They want us to be happy. They want us to be joyful. They want us to celebrate them like Kerry does with the birthdays, the Christmas, everything. They want that for us. So we want to do that. And I think thirdly, as hard as it is to look ahead, if you can look ahead, not at what you've lost, that physical child, but what you might be able to develop in the relationship with that child across the veil. That beautiful child wants a relationship with you. So work towards what you can do to get that relationship.
Excellent. And for those who want to learn more how to do that, you can see my article number 9 at soulproof.com. Well, what is your current belief, understanding, Merle, about there being a meaning and a timing behind how he passed on?
I definitely believe in soul planning. I knew from when Chris was a young child, I was not going to have him forever. I knew that. I knew I would lose him at some point. I actually thought that when he went to prison was my loss, but I realise now that that wasn't the case. So I knew that I would lose him, but I also have a belief that everything happens for a reason, that the power that is above us, that doesn't give us anything that we cannot manage ourselves. And this is all about an opportunity for us to grow. And so it was predestined. I didn't like it. I still don't like it. But at the end of the day, I know that the minute I transition, my beautiful boy is going to be right there to meet me. So it's part of our journey. It was predestined. And I think if we can accept that and understand that, there is some peace in it.
Oh my, well, what a wonderful way to end. Beautiful. And to you, to all the parents this evening, thank you so much. As always, my heart just feels so expanded, so much inspiration, joy. I know this is going to bless so many others. So those who are watching and will watch the recording, watch it twice. Remember all the resources we listed in the beginning. Remember, we are here for you, so reach out. You don't have to do this alone. And take care, everyone. God bless.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Bye.
Love to all of you.
So much.
You.